Hello, everybody. Welcome to another weekly AMA. We have some interesting news and content for you guys. I'm joined here by Herman, Diego. John is going to fill in for Marvin because Marvin has a bit of a chest infection today and talking is a bit laborious for him. But yeah, we have some interesting things to go over. And then we have, of course, the quiz at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you over to Herman. He's going to give us the core important updates, especially on the development side. And after that, I'll give some business updates, and then me and Diego will be having a chat about a new initiative that's been ongoing for the past while. So Herman, are you there?
Yes. Thanks for that, Owen. I do have yet another plane to catch, so I'll keep my my spiel brief. So I do have, as Owen mentioned, some updates about the upcoming update and news regarding this past week's testing. But before I get there, I'd like to, first of all, make a step back and remark of how quite unique the situation, not only in overall governance and how companies are run, but also specific to crypto, that even despite this, the recent events, the market downturn, the general loss of interest for these sort of projects, Cherry has endured this tradition of weekly AMAs, our transparency goals overall. And I'd just like a moment to congratulate the team and also underscore that that people listening in should not take this for granted. I have plenty of better things to do. I'm sure most of the team here would rather spend their Wednesdays evenings for most, so they shouldn't really be working at this time, doing other things, having fun. But still, they commit their time, effort, and frankly, quite unique dedication. This is not what their job description requires. To check in every week at the same hour and provide important information about the Cherry project, the ecosystem, but also more personally of how they're doing and renewing their commitment to the project and to our vision. And indeed, in this time of uncertainty, it's most important that we double down on our core principles. FTX, I've mentioned last time, wasn't, well, the effect may have been a blow for crypto, but it actually describes perfectly of why crypto and the overall goals that we champion in Cherry and in crypto in general are so essential. FTX may have been fraud, may not have been fraud. It was certainly the product of lack of judgment within a corporate governance structure that concentrated power. Now, where this power went and how it was used, whether it was legal or illegal, I'm not one to judge. But the existence of this the system of control that may be corrupted and often is, and the permanence of it, and the fact that most other companies mostly rely on the good faith of the actors that participate in them, their stakeholders, their management teams, their board. It's nice to see that things overall go well. It's nice to see that despite each and every one of these big CEOs' ability to destroy their company, to wreak havoc in their own company, and these may sometimes be very large company like FTX was, to their investors, to their debtors and customers, but to the world at large, and they don't do that, that's quite comforting. But at its core, a blockchain, crypto, and we ask the question, why should that be the case? And so, indeed, all this to say that crypto is beautiful for the idea it represents, and I, though describe my I described my participation the same way as a duty earlier. It really is more than that. I truly believe that we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and that will ultimately lead us to a better future. So how does that translate to Cherry? We will continue focusing on transparency, giving as much voice and power to our community and token holders. Over time, as the community solidifies and more equity is built, not just within the core, but around the ecosystem, let's say different stakeholders building different applications, either empowering the Cherry core blockchain interface, for example, an Explorer, a wallet, etc., but other things that stand around Cherry, like Unigate, Cherish, and so forth. By the rules of the code, really, it's not something that we intend to do. It's something that we must do. That this project won't work, but if we don't, we will overall concede power and diffuse it to this emerging community of stakeholders. I'll say something else about this idea of community of stakeholders and how blockchain fits into this. Blockchain does do a great job about governance and diffusing power. Its original purpose really was to take away trust requirements between commercing counterparties that were having to decide whether a fact actually happened or not. They could just consult the blockchain and see if it did. But it rapidly translated into this more broader and abstract idea of truth and trust, so that now it's not just the blockchain that I can consult to see whether a Bitcoin has been transferred or not, but I can also summon people's judgments, say, should this proposals take effect or not? And even more than that, since Dash, which is a project I started with, and introduced the idea of a DAO, PIVX, and now Cherry, and many projects since Dash first initiated the concept, not just have a system of governance to decide whether things should happen or not, but also a system of funding internal, so that the decision making isn't just in spirit, but it's also practically monetary. And beyond that, so beyond the idea of trust in this mathematical fact, and beyond the idea of empowering users by a layer of abstraction over the math, building DAOs and so forth, even further than that, blockchain does enable us, and this is really marvelous. I can't really describe it in words perfectly, but the idea is that it enables us to organize seemingly disparate efforts toward a common goal. Unigate, Cherish, the many other ecosystem projects of Cherry that you've heard and that you haven't, don't necessarily fit with one another and wouldn't fall under the same, let's say, corporate roof in a traditional sense. However, by interacting with one another, sharing common infrastructure, so delegating costs and externalizing costs to this community of builders, they manage to align themselves perfectly such that one can benefit on the other in this virtuous cycle, really. And I can't but describe it as magic. This is the magic of network effects. Anyway, that was a bit of a philosophical tangent. Let's go back to the updates promised earlier. We, in the spirit of transparency of work, we have been releasing updates on the testnet that's been public. All the code's public. You can just head out on our GitHub and check it out. Last week, I think it was Sunday. No, it was Wednesday. Yeah, last Wednesday, we released our testnet testing proposal bounty airdrop that would promote people to use the layer 0 network deployed on our testnet, test it out, stress test it, and make sure that everything's in order before we eventually release the same code on mainnet. All that went very well. I don't really have any specific update about any issues that were encountered. None were, to my knowledge. Barring any further issue that may arise, but I highly doubt that's the case. We are on track, as one of the core developers sort of should know, but he disclosed it anyway. Shared last week. We are on track to release the layer 0 upgrade. So this is the largest upgrade certainly of the year, and probably up until we fully integrate our storage system. So this is a very substantial upgrade. We spent better half of a year, 6 months really, working on it, and that should be out in 2 weeks. Maybe sooner, maybe slightly later, but we're looking at certainly before the end of the year. Okay, with that, I don't have any other updates. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to pop off. I do have this flight to catch. Bye.
Thank you very much, Herman. That was quite interesting. First of all, encouraging with regards to the, of course, core development, the matter at hand, the work at hand, but also in terms of your thoughts when it comes to the turbulence and opportunities in the Web3 and broader tech space. I would reiterate what you said, and I'd also, without being too, I suppose, contentious about things, I would draw parallels between where power seems to be heading in the non-Web3 space, which in business and indeed in many ways in civil administration is or seems to be trending more towards an increased centralization and hierarchical enforcement of a certain direction of where things need to go, or where we're told things need to go, whatever that might be. And it's multifaceted, but it's unidirectional in all those different facets. Whereas the goal of Web3 is, at its core, to enable people to pull together and choose their own direction, whatever that might be. And obviously, this can lead to differing opinions and differing beliefs in terms of what should be what those directions should be. But the point is that it stands for freedom. It stands for human freedom to be able to chart your own course in a way. A community of stakeholders, as Herman described, under a Web3 paradigm, and indeed in the Cherry context, would be a voluntary and transparent initiative or a set of initiatives. So I think that that's worth mentioning, that, and this will cause some friction with a lot of wider society and indeed authorities at times. But hopefully it's my belief that we can lead by example and convince our detractors, rather than trying to beat them. We can kind of convince them of the merits of Web3 and what it can achieve and how it can be good for anyone. It's a pretty easy pitch to make to someone that crypto doesn't have a specific political leaning or any one specific use, or while the demographics of people involved in crypto tend to be pretty narrow, that doesn't mean that anybody, no matter who they are, couldn't benefit from some aspect of what Web3 is trying to achieve. On the most basic level, and this is the easiest pitch to make to people who are hardcore skeptics of the technology, is to tell someone, hey, even if I don't agree with you on much, or even if I don't know you, I would prefer if you were able to control your own bank account and your own funds without stuffing money in a mattress, which is obviously fraught with risks. I think that you should be able to marshal and administer your own wealth, whatever that might be, totally free from the kind of onerous and invasive constraints that we often see nowadays and indeed throughout history. And that's the most basic pitch that you can make to someone with regards to crypto and Web3 and blockchain, is that this is something that can really enable every individual on earth to take control of their own destiny, or any collective of people to take control of their own destiny. Now, obviously, there's a wider legal and geopolitical context and economic context. It doesn't mean that it'll solve every problem in the world, but I certainly think that everybody in the world having control of their own bank account, for example, full control within the law, full control of their own bank account is an admirable goal, and it's something that's already more or less pretty achievable with 10 minutes and an internet connection, which is a really monumental advance for humanity, in my opinion. So that was my 2 cents about that. There will be an article forthcoming about what we discussed today, and indeed what we discussed last week during the AMA, and we will hopefully be able to publish that in the coming days. Our head of content has worked quite hard on it, and I'm going to chip in a few ideas, and Herman, of course, will get his message put through that too. So that should be an interesting read for anyone interested in what's going on and where we stand on all of these developments in a more elaborated format of a blog post in the coming days. Aside from that, I'm going to give you a brief update as to what's going on more on the business side of Cherry and our different ecosystem projects in brief. So I'm just going to pull up my slides so I don't forget anything. Bear with me, guys. I should have this up. Excuse me. Now, one moment, please. Okay. There's a lot going on. I don't want to miss anything. Okay. First and foremost, there's an upcoming ramp up of Cherry Labs' involvement with prospective and current partners and companies, projects that we intend to incubate, invest in, etc. both small and large. We have timed this in to kind of kick off in the aftermath of Web Summit, because obviously it's a tremendous networking opportunity, and we've made some very good context there. So I hope that we can kind of share some of these details. For example, the thing that was discussed with myself, Herman, and yourselves as a community in the chat in the past 7 days of mapping the different projects that are incubated by Cherry, launching on Cherry, using some extent of the Cherry tech stack. That should hopefully be done within a week. That'll be quite cool. I think you guys will like it. And it will add to the transparency that we discussed as being so important. Aside from that, we have the core releases and ecosystem launches, which are going to be discussed in more detail over the next week. I think we'll try and shoot for a more in-depth discussion of these things next week, since it was 2 weeks since the 2 weeks since the devs would have joined us by then. Maybe we might get the devs on board again for the AMA next week. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. And on top of that, and this is where I'll invite Diego, our project lead at our ecosystem launchpad Seedling, to chime in a couple of moments. And this is also somewhat related to the financial matters that we discussed last week regarding the Cherry Treasury, is that we've seen quite an opportunity for, just as with Cherry University, we see an opportunity for the very strong experience and expertise of our wider project ecosystem to be able to provide value and gain revenue from these human resources and kind of strong competences that we have in many different aspects of running a crypto business, from the more technical aspects to marketing, to business development, legal, finance. All of these things are aspects of business that we've managed to excel in at many times. Despite running on a pretty lean business plan, we've managed to maintain our financial health by really squeezing as much as we can out of the resources that we've decided to deploy so far, especially given the market conditions when it doesn't really make any sense to any intelligent person to deploy an excess of resources right now, rather than saving that money and indeed stockpiling that money for the bear market turned hopefully bull market at some point. So this will be a source of revenue for Cherry. It'll also be a source of contacts for Cherry Labs. It'll be a good source of contacts and partnerships, potential partnerships as well, for Seedling, which is an integral and important part of our ecosystem and project stack, so to speak. Diego, are you there at the moment?
Hello, yes.
Hi, Diego. Thanks for joining us. Yes, so I was just saying that given the entrepreneurial nature of consulting with small companies, it's certainly something that fits very well with what Cherry Labs does as an incubator and what Seedling does as a launchpad. And therefore, it was the natural choice to involve Diego as project lead with Seedling in the running of this consulting arm, which is already functional, I suppose, and is already signing up customers. It'll be a boon for the network for the reasons I mentioned, and also because this will provide a higher profile for the project, and also a source of revenue, which will be reassuring to our community to hear that we are making the project itself and the Cherry Treasury as profitable as possible as soon as possible. which has a huge implications for the long-term strategy of the project. If it's something, if any entity doesn't make any money and is hoping to make money in the distant future, that's not really something that lends itself well to success, especially in current market conditions. Whereas if we can leverage our, I suppose, business intelligence and business competence in the short term, then that is something that will really help the community or the business community behind Cherry quite well. So, Diego, do you want to tell us a little bit about your involvement with the consulting side, perhaps?
Yeah. So, Owen, you basically gave the main points, but I would like just to add maybe how seedlings involved or impacted and the benefits from this. Um, Again, leveraging our recent success in seedling in the fundraising of strong projects and our expertise and collaboration with our incubation partner, Cherry Labs, will help us not only maybe leverage seedling as not only a fundraising platform with some marketing value, but an advisor of other projects on certain areas of the business development. We believe collaborating closer with new projects will make seedling stand out from the rest of launchpads, as well as bring new projects in our launchpad that we're not only fundraising and therefore listing, but actively helping in other areas, making this a more controlled situation and environment for us and understanding the product better, as we will have certain influence on the project listed. This will mean we will therefore maximize our efforts for the correct development of the projects chosen. So this will mean a much more synergy-based approach will be taken with projects, also making us closer to their community, again, making us stand out from the rest. So yeah, this will also be something that Seedling team will benefit from, both regarding another line of potential projects coming in through this new funnel. The leads developed through this initiative will also be more controlled, as explained, and therefore we'll have way more information. We will have way more information as to why this is a great project. Obviously, I just wanted to know that fundraising in Seedling will not be a project's basics, the project's basic service, but more as a complementary, and only if we see potential in the fundraising and not to engage in other collaboration of other areas. So the last point I would like to mention is that maybe having this initiative will reiterate the whole added value process that launching on Seedlings platform opens up for projects. Every project's mainly looking for fundraising always, or on the majority of occasions, are looking and working on other areas. This can be from ramping up their marketing with KOLs to defining their legal structure or deciding on what strategy to follow, which will be aligned with the roadmap. So therefore, having a chance whilst looking for fundraising to have offered some other collaborative efforts on other areas will definitely make the fundraising strategy turn towards a much more synergistic and interesting collaboration or partnership from our side. Maybe, Aaron, do you want to go through the different topics we could cover?
Yeah. So we have three practices in mind. I used to work in consulting myself, so this is how these are tried and tested marketing strategies, so to speak, and or market positioning approaches to running a consulting arm. And yeah, so to go through them, we've got three broad practices. The first would be technical and development. We intend to provide things like audit services, custom blockchain development, smart contract development, market making facilities, and general technical advisory. We have a business growth practice, which will involve all of the managerial tasks involved in running a crypto Web3 startup. And that would involve, for example, providing people with legal consulting, banking consulting, advisory in terms of how to actually run various aspects of their expansion, I suppose, business development consulting and the like, which is more on a corporate level, I suppose. And then finally, we have go to market, wherein we would help people with their market positioning, marketing strategy, actual marketing services as well, and also how to manage communities, etc., as well as content and other similar things as well. So it's quite varied. These are all things that we have strong experience in, and we can certainly hope to, on the one hand, benefit in terms of partnerships, business development, and revenue, but also it's very good, I think, for us for often in crypto and in the wider corporate world, there is a lack of dissemination of knowledge, and I don't think that's necessarily helping anyone. To guard such knowledge for yourself alone is probably not something that's very necessary. So we're also looking to be able to help out some interesting, promising, and high potential startups in the Web3 space as well. So that's quite exciting. I think that's everything, Diego, is it? Unless you want to mention anything about Seedling.
Yes, I can give my generic more overview of our update. So this week, Seedling has been working more behind the scenes, and we have personally been a bit less active from an external perspective on social media due to the new initiative we just mentioned. As always, following the same structure on the AMAs, I'd like to start with the project's view or the project's perspective. We have a couple of projects aligned. We did have to reject a couple of projects after our due diligence, which did look interesting at first sight, but due to certain areas of the project looking less clear or with less visibility, we decided to take a more risk-adverse perspective. Again, as always, we would rather have you guys not contribute to a sale that we do not see 100% as an opportunity, or all the analysts agree on, including myself. However, this might have some change other than, that we have announced, we have advanced with other projects. We are maybe looking at a shorter vesting project and later phase to recover from the two last projects, which were two long vesting projects, so that everyone can participate, both all the seedlers looking for maybe more shorter vestings and the quicker market response, and those long-term contributors that won't look at the price on TGE and are looking to sell at strategic strong points, maybe look at price when the value proposition of the actual project in the roadmap are fulfilled, or when the project is actually starting to deliver value, which is definitely not on TGE. So I will keep you guys up to date, but will not risk any of the confidence on the Seedling team. Just maybe going back, just to go in more depth from the Seedling's perspective, on the consulting side, due to the nature of Seedling, of the project, we'll maybe be more integrated on the on the business growth side. After all, the study of tokenomics, pitch deck, fundraising, looking at more marketing perspective and PR is what we look for when we're doing our due diligence. So this is our area of expertise, and is where we'll be helping Cherry Labs develop a better consulting branch. And then lastly, the last point would be community. The last few weeks have been spent on organizing the whole repositioning, which has been speeding ahead, looking to ultimate these last things before starting to show some work to general public. Also looking to launch this on the correct timing. After all, we want as much contribution as possible, and will therefore choose a correct strategical timing for a successful launch of this private initiative for Seedling. And personally, if I might add something to what was mentioned earlier by Herman and Owen, I think with the development of blockchain, it may not longer be necessary one single dominating business like, I don't know, Google or Amazon to produce, well, all the functionality of a project, but instead a group of projects may exist within a single ecosystem, which would be more in line of Web3's goal of maybe promoting democratization and decentralization. And I believe Cherry, in a way, and following Herman's view of infrastructure, supports the claim, and somehow how the ecosystem projects in Cherry support each other, sharing one same view and goal of adoption of a more fair way of working through the use of this great technology. That's pretty much all.
Thanks very much, Diego. Yeah, very insightful as well, as always, and very encouraging to hear things are moving along, as always, with the Seedling project. As I mentioned earlier, Marvin is not able to join us today because he has a chest infection. He's still working away, but crushingly, very depressingly, Marvin can't talk for once. So, so John has agreed to lend his expertise and discuss the developments at Cherish in brief. So, John, are you there at the moment?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you could just shoot ahead with whatever update you might have, that would be quite appreciated.
Sure. Hi guys, so things are really ramping up at Cherish ahead of launch and everything is coming together quite nicely. We've been very busy this week and Marvin has given me a few points to go over to bring you all up to date. So we have been engaging with and building on the connections we made at Web Summit. We found it to be a very positive and useful experience and it looks quite promising. On the development side, everything is going well. This week we're undergoing a process of testing to ensure that everything is working correctly. The Cherish video that was mentioned last week was just posted a few minutes ago on our new YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out and subscribe. And finally, we've been working on the creator interview initiative. We already have lots of interesting and talented artists and creators signed up to and involved with Cherish, and they've been able to give us some really fascinating insight into their experiences, both as artists and with social media. We'll have content on that coming shortly, so keep an eye on our social channels. And that's about it for this week. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you very much, John. Great to hear. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have you on very soon again in one of the AMAs. Hopefully not that Marvin is sick. You should just drop in some time again and give us some of your insights as to how things are going over there. Also, I'm going to hand you over to John because he will now handle the quiz. I think there's one of the winners from last week. All winners from before last week were paid. I think there's a winner from last week that hasn't been, and I think that one other person from previous weeks hasn't been, which I'll get back to today. So I think there's 2 prizes that are yet to go out, and then the prizes from today will also go out. So John is going to fire ahead with that. And in the meantime, as we say in Ireland, I'll love you and leave you. We're going to have some interesting announcements and content coming out over the next few days between now and next Wednesday. And as I said, hopefully next Wednesday we'll be able to rally the troops and give you a more in-depth update regarding the the development strategically and in terms of development that's happening across the cherry ecosystem. So thank you very much, guys, for joining. As always, it's been a pleasure. And any questions, drop them in the chat. And I'll speak to you guys very soon, in a couple of hours probably, in the chat itself. Thanks, guys, and bye-bye.